Hello everyone, this is Ankit Jain. I welcome you all to my channel Tech Journey with Ankit. Today is day 19 of our LWC Bootcamp, and in today's session we will try to understand what are the different types of decorators available in the Lightning Web Component. What is the use of each and every decorator in the Lightning Web Component? More importantly, we will be discussing about the usage of @track decorator, how you should use @track decorator, in what scenarios @track decorator is mandatory, in what scenarios you should use @API decorator, and how you should pass the values from parent to child by using @API decorator. So let's get started with the today's discussion about the mystery of decorators. Before we get started, a quick intro about me. My name is Ankit Jain. I do have more than 10 years of experience in the Salesforce ecosystem, where I got an opportunity to work on the several clouds, including the sales, service, CPQ, as well as the billing. Moreover, I do have my expertise on the Lightning Web Component as well as on the integrations too. In case you folks likes to connect with me, these are the different channels are available. You can connect with me over the YouTube, LinkedIn, as well as on the Telegram. You will get the description of all these channels in the video description as well. Coming towards the decorator part, in LWC we do have the three different types of decorators. First is the @API decorator, second is @track decorator, and the third one is @wire decorator. Now, when you should go for what type of decorator? So @API decorator here, it will be helpful whenever you have to define the public properties in your component. Whenever you have to define the public properties in your component. Now, what is public property? Public properties are something which which can be accessed from outside of the component, which can be accessed from the app builder, or which can be accessed by another parent component. Those properties are the public properties. So in case you want to create a property which can be accessed by another component or the parent component, or which can be exposed to the app builder, then in such scenarios you go and define the @API decorator. Coming towards another decorator, that is @track decorator. You should use @track decorator only in the specific scenarios. And that specific scenario here is if you want to observe the changes to the properties of an object. If you want to observe the array, then and then only you should go for the @track decorator. Track decorator, it is also used to identify the property as the private property. By default, if you are not specifying any decorator, it will be considered as under the @track decorator only. By default, your properties are the private properties. To make it explicitly public, we have to go for @API decorator. Otherwise, our job can be served with @track decorator as well. Coming towards the next decorator, that is @wire decorator. Wire decorator is used to read the Salesforce data. When you should go for the wire decorator, whenever you have to read the Salesforce data. In such scenarios, you should go for the wire decorator. Lightning Web Component uses a reactive wire service. Now, what is reactive wire service? As soon as your parameter has been changed, if you want to get the Salesforce data, then you should go for the @wire decorator. We will deep dive in detail with @wire decorator as we move forward in our bootcamp. When the wire service provisions the data, the component re-render. The first key thing about the wire decorator that you should know, you can only read the Salesforce data with the wire decorator. You cannot perform DML operations with the help of wire decorator. You cannot create the record, you cannot delete the record, you cannot update the record with wire decorator. You can only read the data with the help of wire decorator. And the next point says that whenever the wire decorator or whenever the wire service returns the data, your component will automatically re-render. Re-render means your component will be automatically refreshed as soon as the wire service decorate the data, or wire provision return the data. So let's go and deep dive each decorator one by one. Before we go and deep dive, I also like to highlight the different types of properties. Although we discussed in brief here about the public property, let me go and discuss more about the different types of properties available in the Salesforce. Lightning Web Component. First one is the private property. As I highlighted, whenever you are putting at the rate track decorator or you are not putting any decorator, by default your properties are public properties. Sorry, by default your properties are private properties. Again, I am repeating, if you are not putting any decorator or you are putting at the rate track decorator, your properties will be private properties. And these private properties will only be available within the component. You cannot access these properties from outside the component. It will only be available within this component only. So it is used to maintain the internal state of the component. Internally, for example, whenever the variable has been rendered, you want to send the data to the UI. In such scenarios, we go and define the private property. Coming towards the next property, that is the public property. Now, what is public property? Again, if you are decorating a variable or if you are decorating a property with @API decorator, then it is considered as the public property. Again, I am repeating, if you are decorating a property with @API decorator, then it is considered as the public property. But only one catch here is, if you are decorating with @API decorator, but here you are putting is exposed as false. In the previous session, we discussed that whenever we have to expose our component to the app builder or to any other lightning applications or to the communities or to the flows, we have to make sure that we have to put is exposed to true. But if you are putting is exposed value as false and you are decorating the variable with @API, then it is referred as the public property. Public properties generally get the data from the parent component. Public properties generally get the data from the parent component. Next thing here is, if I am decorating a variable with @API decorator, but here I go and push is exposed as true, then it will be considered as the global property. Here and here, the only difference in between the public property and the global property here is, here we are not exposing the component to the any app builder or to any other component. Here we are exposing the component to the app builder or to the communities or to the flows, then the property will be referred as the global property. Then the property will be referred as the public property. I can see in the chart there is a one question from the Saida Reddy. He says that public @API with org or outside the org. So @API is within the org, first point, and it will be only exposed to the parent component. Unrelated component cannot access the private @API property. Only the parent component can access the public property. And in the case of public property, you will set is exposed value to false. Next here is, in case you have to make it global, then you put is exposed as true on the component. In case you have to make it global, then you will set is exposed as true to the component. Okay, the next question here is, once again explain @track. So I will take this question down the line. I do have the specific slide for @track decorator. That time we definitely will be discussing @track decorator in more detail. Coming toward the next point. Now the reactivity in the private primitive property. Now here we are talking specifically about @track decorator here. Okay, as I said, what is the private property? Let me take you back again. Either no decorator or @track decorator, then it will be considered as the private property here. So take an example of this component. In this component, what we are doing here is we have created one property. So greeting is the property. Now greeting is which property here? It's a private property. Why private property? Because this is not decorated with any decorator. That's why we can say that greeting is the private property, right? And you can directly show the, or you can directly access the data from the private property to the HTML file. You can directly access the data from the private property to the HTML file. One key thing that you should know, folks, you can only access either the private property or the public property variables in the HTML file. You can only access the private property or the public property variables in the HTML file. There is another concept of getter that you can also access, but we will discuss about this down the line. Okay, you can directly access the private or the public variables on the HTML file. To access it, you have to make sure that you are putting these curly braces around the property name. You have to make sure that you are putting the curly braces around the variable name. Now the next key thing, for example, let's say that that output is coming up on the UI. When the component is loading, we are passing here the value as hello, and you can see that the similar value is coming up here. Now on the click of the button, what we are doing here is we are changing this value to goodbye. So what will happen as soon as you modify the private property or the public property? I'm specifically talking here about the primitive properties. Okay, don't get confused. There are other types of properties as well, like the objects or the array. Here I am specifically talking about the primitive properties. Whenever you are directly updating the primitive properties, your component will re-render and you will see the changes on the UI. Okay, let's go and try to implement this with one example. So here I am creating one component, and let's say I am giving the component name here as the welcome tech journey with Ankit. Let's say this is the component that I am creating, and I'm putting the component name here as welcome tech journey with Ankit. Let me increase the font size a bit. Okay, I hope now you guys can see the code quite clearly. So here what I have done, I have created one component, and this is my component name. During the component creation, we have to make sure that we are following the correct naming convention that we have already discussed. Now in this component, I am declaring two variables. First variable, what I am doing here is, let's say I am putting here the greeting, and I am assigning the value to the greeting here as hello. Another component, another variable or another property that I am declaring here is, let's say welcome. And here, let's say I am putting as take journey with Ankit. Now, only difference in between these two properties here is, for the one property, I am not putting any decorator. For the another property here, I go and put @track decorator. That is the only difference in between two properties here. As I am putting here @track decorator, we have to make sure that we are importing the track decorator here. Irrespective of the decorator that you are putting up here, you have to make sure that you are importing that decorator here. Now I do have the two properties. One is the greeting and second is the welcome. The point that I want to highlight here is, for the primitive properties, it doesn't matter whether you are putting @track decorator or you are not putting @track decorator. Now let me go and open the HTML file for this. I'm doing it both side by side so that we can see the output correctly. So what I am doing here is, here I go and put both the variables. Let me put here the P, and here to access these properties, what we have to do, as I said, whenever we have to access this property, we have to use the curly braces. That's it. Within the curly brace, just put the property name. Similarly, in the next line, within the curly brace, we just go and put the property name, that is the welcome. So whenever we have to access any property in the HTML file, make sure that we are putting that property within this curly brace. Right? So I have defined two properties. One is without track, one is with track, and here I am getting the two different properties here. Now let me go and expose this component. So what type of properties are this? Private property. I have referred these private properties in my HTML file, and now I am exposing this component again. So let me go and put here the is exposed to true, and here I am defining the targets here. I'm exposing this component on the app page. Let me go and deploy this component. And we will add this component on our app page. So meanwhile, I'm opening my app. I have created the app with the name of LWC Bootcamp. So let me open this app here. I believe my component is deployed successfully. You can see my component is deployed here successfully. To deploy the component, just do the right click and click on this deploy button and your component will be deployed successfully. Now here I go and add this component. Here I go and add this component. Now let me go and click on save and I go back. Now, before I go and take it further, you can see that whatever the values that I have put on these properties, all these values are coming up here. But again, I will just add the few CSS here so that we can see the changes quite clearly. The first thing that I want to do here is I want to add the white background to my in my HTML file. I want to add the white background in my HTML file. Now there are two options to do it, to add the white background. First one is I can go to the SLDS and I can look for the theme and I can get the white theme from the SLDS library. That is the one option. Another option that I can do here is I can navigate to the component library and from here I can directly refer the card. Both options are completely fine. It's completely up to you what you want to do. If you want this kind of a basic theme, you can also apply this SLDS box and the SLDS theme, right? If you want kind of a this kind of a background, you can add another texture here. Or if you want a same simple background from the out of the box component, then we can use the lightning card. Here I prefer to use the lightning card because it is quite handy to use and we do get multiple options with the lightning card as well. So that's why I'm going here for the lightning card. If you are exploring the lightning web component for the first time, you have to always make sure that you are navigating to the component library, searching here for the card, and here you will get the sample code that you can use. So I'm just copying this sample code from here as is and putting it here in my file. Again, I don't need this template, so I will just go and remove this template. I'm only interested in this lightning card. Okay, let's say in the title, I want to change the title to Take Journey with Ankit. And what I want to do here is rather than I go and show all those different things here, I want to put this uh, changes in my component. So under the lightning card, I am putting here the greeting as well as the welcome, the variables here. Let me go and deploy this and see the changes. Without the lightning card, this is how our component is coming up. There is no background and it is very hard to understand whatever we have written. Now what we are doing here is we are adding this lightning card so that we'll get this white color background for our component. Let me go and refresh this now. I believe the component is deployed. Yes, I am refreshing the component. You can see that now I am getting the little nice background. Now, but you can see another challenge here is my text, it is coming up very close to the border, right? How I can add some space from the border? For that, we can go to the SLDS classes and here I am looking for the padding. Padding will help me to add some space to the card. You can see here it is coming very close to the card and it is very hard to read. I just want to add some spacing rather than I go and apply my own CSS. In the previous session we discussed that we should always explore the option of SLDS. So what I am doing here is I want to add the space from the left hand side. So from here I will go and select the location as left. Now here they are showing the sample code how much space you want to add. Accordingly you can go and add some space here. So let's say I want to add this much space from the border. So I'm just copying this complete division from here and again pasting it in my code. So here I want these two text should have some border. So here I am pasting this division and I am moving my code inside this. And I am moving my code inside this. Let me go and deploy this now. Now again I have added some changes. Now let's go. I have added the SLDS class. Let's go and check the impact of the SLDS class that we have added. You can see that now I am getting some space from the left hand side, and that's the reason I have added this padding class. What is this class about? This class is all about the padding, right? I hope everyone got the understanding till here. Now the next thing that I want to do here is I want to put one button, and what I want here is as soon as user clicked on the button, I want to change the text of both of these variable. So again, to put the button, if you are very new to the Lightning Web Component, here you should go and take the sample code for the button from the component library. It is very easy to build the component if you get yourself familiarized with the component library. You can see I am inside the button now. I want a button. Again, it's up to you what kind of button that you want. We do have the different types of button here. In case you are looking for button with icon, then you can go here and open the button with icon, and here you will get the buttons with the different icons as well. Let's say I want to use this button, for example. So I'm just copying this button from here, or let me use the button with the blue color just for the better readability. How I can identify the button with the blue color? Blue color here, it signifies the variant. So whenever the brand is variant, we get the button of that type. So here I am doing the same thing. Here again I am adding the button. So I have created another division and I have put my button in that division. Now what I want here is, let's say I'm changing the label of my button. Here I go and put the label as change text, right? Title, let's say you can give anything. Title is something that will come up whenever you hover over the button. For example, let's say here, if I go and hover over this button, the title, you can see that download action with brand variant that is coming up from the title. So here I go and change the title. Let's say I says that change default text. That's what this button will do. Now icon, you can go and apply any types of icon. Whenever you see this icon name field, from where you will get the icon, again the one stop solution is the SLDS icon. Whenever you are looking for any type of CSS, you should always go to the SLDS, and from here you can look for the SLDS icons. And here, let's say I want to add some another icon here. So first thing, I have to go and decide what category of icon that I am looking for. So here, from here you can go and select the category. Let's say I want to apply the icon with standard category. So I'll get all the different icons of the standard category here, and from here you can go and select any icon name. So first I want to apply the icon of standard category. So here I should go and put the standard. Make sure that you have to put everything here in the small case. Here you can see the S is capital, but whenever you are putting under the icon name, everything must be under the small case and followed by the icon name. Now whatever the icon that you want, let's say you want to use this announcement icon. So go and put this announcement icon here. Then go and put this announcement icon here. Okay, so here I go and what I want now, as soon as user clicked on this button, I want to execute some functionality in the JavaScript class. Remember this one golden rule, folks. Let me go and put this rule on the notepad file. The way data binding works in LWC. How the data binding works in LWC is always one way. How the data binding works in LWC is always one way. Why I am saying here one way? The rule says that whenever you are changing any property in JavaScript file, it will be automatically replicate in HTML file. Whenever you are changing any property in the JavaScript file, it will be automatically replicate in HTML file. No manual efforts will be required. No coding will be required here. Whenever you are changing any property in the JavaScript file, it will be automatically replicate in the HTML file. And the next point here is, whenever you have to send data from HTML file to JavaScript file, from the HTML file, whenever you have to send any data or any communication, not only data, but any communication from HTML file to JavaScript file, you have to take help of events. What you have to do? You have to always take the help of event. Whenever you are changing any property in the JavaScript file, it will be automatically replicate in the HTML file. For example, here we have populated here the word hello. We have done any coding changes? No, it is automatically replicating on my HTML file. However, if I have to send any communication from my HTML file to JavaScript file, I have to always take the help of events. So here we are following the same rule. Here I will take the help of the event, and here I will be taking the help of the on click event. We already discussed in detail about these different types of event in our JavaScript sessions, right? So here I am using the on click event. Now here, how you will specify the event method name. To specify the event method name, again you have to use the curly brace, and here you can specify the event method name. Whatever the method that you like to put, you can just go and put that method name here. So whenever the user clicked on this button, this click handler will execute. Whenever the user clicked on this button, this click handler will execute, and by default all the events do have one variable, that is the event variable. By default all the events do have one variable, that is the event variable. So how we are sending the communication, how we are, I'm letting know that to the JavaScript that the user have requested to change the text by clicking on this button. So as soon as I clicked on the button, the event is fired and the communication has been sent to my JavaScript file. Now in the JavaScript file, what I want to do, I want to make the changes in my to this attributes or to this property. What I want to do, I have to make the changes to this property. Again, a keynote, folks, whenever we have to access these properties in any of the method, whenever we have to access these properties, irrespective of the property, public property, private property, whenever we have to access these properties inside this method, we should always use this operator, followed by the property name. So I have to change the value of this dot greeting. So here I will be first using the this followed by the greeting, and here I go and put the greeting name. Let's say I am putting the greeting name here as Namaskar. I am just putting the greeting name here as Namaskar, and followed by the, or let me put here the greeting name as Namaste, because Namaskar is quite Marathi and I'm not sure whether everyone is familiar with this, but I believe Namaste is something that everyone knows. So let me put here the Namaste, and followed by the, I also want to modify this property here. So again I go and put here this dot welcome. Today is day 19 of LWC bootcamp. This is how I am modifying the property. So whenever you have to modify the property or refer this property in your method, the key thing that you should know here is you should go and put here the this dot property name. Okay, again as I said, whenever you are modifying the property, you don't have to do anything, it will be automatically rendered on the UI. So let's go and deploy this and check whether it is working as expected or not. So my changes has been deployed successfully. Let's go to the org and refresh the page. So I do have one button. You can see the announcement icon that we have put. We have put this button here as the change text. Now if I go and click on this button, what will happen? Try to understand the flow, what is happening. Okay, if as soon as I click on this button, this method will be called. So where is this method? Click handler. What this method is doing? This method is updating this property. My component will re-render and display this property. Again, this will be called. Again, my component will be re-rendered and display this property. Okay, always try, whenever you are working in LWC or any other programming language, always try to decode the flow, how the control is getting transferred from one functionality to another functionality or from one method to another method. So user clicking on the button, this method is called. In this method we are updating these things, and the changes will be automatically rendered on the UI because of this data binding rule. Whenever you are making changes to any property in the JS file, it will be automatically replicate on the HTML file. So let me go and click on this button. You can see that the values got changed. You can see that the values got changed. I hope it is clear to everyone how to work with the reactive properties, how to work with the private properties in the Lightning Web Component, and how the basic reactivity works with the private primitive properties. Let me check if we do have any questions in the chat box. There's a question from the Mohsin. Can we also add the SLDS padding property directly inside the P tag? Yes, you can definitely do that, Mohsin. You can directly add this padding property in the P tag as well. But what will happen here, if you are adding here specifically for this P tag, you have to again do this for another P tag as well. So again, it's a repetition of the code that you are doing. So to avoid this repetition of the code, I have put it at this level. Again, it's a very good question. Why I'm not adding it here? Because if I add it here, I have to put the same thing here. I have to put the same thing here as well. Definitely, I can go and do it, but I just want to avoid the repetition of the code. I can go and put this thing here as well as I can go and put this thing here as well. Definitely, I can do it, and I can take this out from here. Correct way, but it's just a repetition of the code that I am doing. Sorry, let me go and undo the changes. There's another question from the Mohsin. Can we change the button label on the click? Can you please show how to get the button instance? Yes, we can also change the button label on the click as well. That is also possible. How to do that? Allow me some time. When we go and talk about the query selector in the Lightning Web Component, that time I will show you how you can change the button label of the component in the LWC. But just an FYI, it is completely possible. With the help of query selector, you can get this component and you can modify any properties of that component. You can change the label, change the title, change the icon name, change the class. Everything is possible. But I will show you down the line when we go and talk about the DOM selectors in LWC. Let's move toward the next concept, that is reactivity in private object nested properties. Now this is very important, folks. Pay close attention on this. Here, even though I am specifying the track decorator, it doesn't matter. Even I specify or don't specify, it doesn't matter. Right? My functionality is working as expected. Like here, I have not specified the track decorator, and here I have specified the track decorator. It doesn't matter. Now the question comes, in what scenarios the track decorator matters then? The answer to this is the whenever we are working on the object nested properties. Whenever we are working on the object nested properties. Let's try to understand this example here. So what we are doing in this example, we do have one object, and in this object I do have the two different properties. First is the John and first and the last, where the first name is John and the last name is Doe. When the component will re-render, it will show the first property, that is John. Right? When the component will re-render, it will show the first property as the John. Now, what will happen as soon as user clicked on the button? What will happen as soon as user clicked on the button? What we are doing here is we are changing the name from John to Jen. What will happen here? As soon as I go and click on the button, we are changing it from John to Jen. Let me quickly show you again this with another example. Okay, let me go and create another component here. And here I am putting the component name as nested object private property. It is very important to understand. Most of the times developers do get confused when to use @track decorator. So what I am saying here is, let's say I have one object. Okay, let's say my object here is my details, for example, and here I go and put the first name as Ankit and the last name as, let's say, Jain. I do have one object. Now I will go and display these details on the UI part. Now I am doing, as I am familiar with the syntax, I'm not going to the component library. I already shown you once how to work with the component library. Let me put it here, the title as nested private object property. That is the example that I want to explain here. And what I am saying here is, in this I want to display the user related details. So let me put here class slds var p around small. Why I am adding the padding, I hope everyone is clear with it. In case still there is a confusion, you can let me know. And what I want to display here is the first name. So how we can access it? Whenever we have to access any property, what we do here, we always put the curly brace, and here I go and put the my details, sorry, this my details dot fname, my details dot fname. I'm just accessing this property and putting it here. Why it is not coming correctly? Let me just check the syntax. Okay, so let's say I'm getting here the my details dot fname. Now I do have another button as well, so I'm putting another button. Let's say slds var p around small, and here I am putting a button. Let's say lightning button, putting a label of the button here as change text, and another or change, let's say change name. I'm putting here the variant as brand, and the next thing that I am putting here is, as soon as user clicked on the button, I want to execute the handler. So here I go and put the click handler as well. So on the button, as soon as user clicked on this button, I want to change the first name. So here I go and put this click handler. Again, by default it does take one parameter as the event parameter. And now what I am doing in this method is, I am just changing this name, this my details dot f name to, let's say I am changing this to Amit. From Ankit, what I am doing here is I am changing this to Amit. Ideally everything looks good, because that's what we have learned in the previous example. Whenever we go and modify the value, the changes should automatically rendered on the UI. The only difference here is, in the previous example we are dealing with the primitive property, and here we are dealing with the object. That is the only difference. Rest of the things are exactly same. Let me quickly expose this component now. App page, let me go and deploy this. Again, intentionally I am going slow in this one, because I want to give you the maximum example for this. Okay, we are getting one error here. What is the error? Okay, there's a spell issue in the lightning, lightning lightning button. Let me go and deploy this again. Now my component is deployed successfully. I believe I have exposed this component as well to the app page. Let's go and add this component here. So here I go to the edit page, and I'm adding this component here. So here I go and add this component. Let me scroll down. This is the component that we have created, nested object private property. I'm just dragging and dropping this component here. Click on save and go back. Now what should happen here? As soon as I go and click on this button, the name should be changed from Ankit to Amit. Now here, if I make a click on this button, you can see that nothing is happening. My name is not changing even though the number of times that I will click. Now the question comes why? The question comes why? Why my name is not changing? Because your object nested properties, whenever they are changing, automatically they are not reactive. Whenever you are changing a single property of an object, listen me very carefully, whenever you are changing the single property of an object, your component will not automatically re-render here. Nested object property change, your component is not re-rendering here, and that's why you cannot see that change on the UI. That's why you cannot see that change on the UI. If you want, you can also go and debug this. For example, let me quickly put a debug as well. So I am clicking on the source. I am opening the component. What is the component? Nested object. So let me go and open the source here. Why it is not showing that? Hmm. Just give me a minute. Let me check what is the component name that I have given. Nested object private property. Let me close this and click on inspect. Navigate to the sources. Here I put the control P, nested object property, right? So here I am opening the function, whatever the function that we have, whatever the component that we have created. Let me check if I open the correct one. Yes, we are opening the correct one. Now, if I scroll down, let's check where we do have this change handler method. This is where I do have the change handler method. I am putting a debugger here, right? So as soon as I go and click on this button, you can see the control is coming up here. If I take the F10, and you can see that my value is changed to Amit here. So my functionality is working as expected, but my UI is not replicating that change. You can see that my functionality is working as expected. My value is changed to Amit, but my UI is not getting refreshed. Now the question comes why? Why my UI is not getting refreshed here? The answer to this is in the next slide. So whenever you are modifying a single property of an object, what you have to do here is you have to make sure that your object is annotated with @track decorator. What you have to make sure this, your object is annotated with @track decorator. No additional changes is required. Only one thing that you have to make sure is whenever you are modifying the property of an object, you have to make sure that your object is annotated with @track. And as we are using the track decorator here, you have to make sure that we are importing the track decorator. With one single change, if I go and deploy this component, now whenever I go and modify the component, the changes will render on UI. So here I go and refresh this page and click on the change name. You can see this time the name is changing. This time the name is changing. I hope it is clear to everyone when you should use the @track decorator. Similar analogy is also applicable for the array as well. Similar analogy is also applicable for the array as well. So what this point says that, listen me very carefully now, because here again it goes bit complex. So for example, if you are modifying the array and you are not specifying @track decorator, again you will get the similar issue. Again, you will get the similar issue. Let me also quickly put it here. Let's say I do have one array. Let's say my task for today, and here I go and put the task as uh, office, second one meeting, and the next one here is, let's say, bootcamp. These are the three different tasks that I do have. On the click of another button, I want to add another task. What I want to do, on the click of the button, I want to add another task, but that task will not be added if I go and click on the button. Let's say here I am putting the button as add task. Okay, and here again this time let's say I am creating another method. Let's say I am putting here the add task handler, another function. So if the user clicked on this button, the expectation here is one another task should be added. So let me put here event, and here whenever we have to add the any new item inside the array, we use the push method. So here again I am doing the same thing, I am putting the push, and let's say the last task that I do have here is the self study. For example, the last task that I do have for today is the self study. Now if I follow this approach again, my task will not be refreshed. So what I have to do here is I have to again go and annotate here with @track decorator. To make this functionality work, again I have to follow the same thing. This also I have to make sure that I am annotating with @track decorator. Okay, similar analogy what we have learned for the object, similar analogy is also applicable for the array as well. But now there is one more scenario that you should understand. There is one more scenario that you should understand. Let me go and put here another example, another button, for example, and in this button what I am saying here is refresh data. What I am saying in this button is you should go and refresh the data. And let's say I am creating here another method, and that is nothing but the refresh handler. There's one more scenario with respect to the track that you should understand. That's why I said it's a complete mystery, because there are too many scenarios to understand with the track decorator. Coming toward the third scenario now. For example, let's say in this method, what I am doing here is rather than I go and modify the one property, or rather than I go and add the one object, what I am doing here is here I am completely refreshing the object as well as the array. How I can completely refresh it? So here I can go and put this dot details. Here also actually we should go and put the this dot my task, because I am accessing the property. So here I go and put this dot details is equal to, here I have only modified one property, but this time what I am doing here is with the help of spread operator. With the help of spread operator, what I am saying here is my f name should be changed to Amit. What I am saying here is with the help of spread operator, this f name should be changed with Amit. So what I am doing in this scenario, I am completely refreshing the object, or either with the spread operator, or here you go and put f name as Amit, comma, sorry, let me correct the syntax. Here I should put f name is equal to Amit, comma, l name is equal to keep same as Jen. What I am saying here is you should go and put the f name as Amit and keep the l name as Jen. So what I am doing here is here I am completely refreshing the object. So whenever you again completely refresh the object, in that scenario also track decorator is not required. If you are again completely refreshing the object, then again the track decorator is not required. Sorry, here it should not be equal to, it should be colon, my bad. Then again the track decorator is not required. Right? Similarly in the array as well, rather than we go and add the element like this, if I go and refresh the complete array, let's say here rather than I go and add the element something like this, what I am doing here is I am asking here to consider the existing task and add another task as the self study. Consider the existing task and add another task as the self study. Then also in this scenario also @track decorator is not required. So whenever you are completely refreshing the object, or you are completely refreshing the array, in such scenarios also @track decorator is not required. And that is the point that we are highlighting here. If you are refreshing the complete object, or you are refreshing the complete array, in such scenarios also @track decorator is not required. So the point or the way I want to summarize this here is, if you are modifying a property of an object, or you are adding one single element to an array, then and then only at the rate track decorator is required. If you are refreshing the complete object, or you are dealing with the primitive data types, in such scenarios at the rate track decorator is not required. Mohsin have one question. In array also, in the place of push, how can we add the self study in the end via the spread operator? I hope Mohsin you got the answer. Right? This is how we can add the element in the last. We have studied in detail how we can use the spread operator to add the element in the start, in the middle, as well as in the end. I hope you can go over that video and revise that concept in more detail. Mohsin have another question. It should be in this dot my task, is it? Mohsin, I believe you got the answer. I'm not sure what is the next question that you are asking, but let me know if you got the answer, how we can add the self study by using the spread operator. Any confusion on the track decorator part? We tried to go as much detail into at the rate track decorator with all the possible scenarios. Right, I like to stop today here only, because public property again it will take some more time, so we will delegate the public properties for the tomorrow session, and we will stop today here only. Consider this as the part 1 of the decorator. We will divide the decorators into the part 2. Tomorrow we will be talking more about the public property as well as getters and setters in LWC. Okay, so here you can see, you may see at the rate track applied to the primitive or the legacy region. Before, if I am not wrong, either 21 or 20, it was mandatory that whenever you are defining any variable in the lightning web component, it was mandatory to use at the rate track decorator. But again, salesforce have undone that changes. Now, based on the scenario, you should be using at the rate track decorator. Based on the scenario, you should be using at the rate track decorator. Okay, Ashwini, thanks for correcting me. Yes, this should be not task, this should be my task. Correct. It was a typo from my side. Here, I should not use the task, we should use the my task, because my task is the property name. I hope you folks found today's session helpful and learned something about the decorators, how you should use the decorator, when to use at the rate track, when should not use at the rate track. I hope every one of you got this understanding. If yes, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. If you guys do have any questions, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you. Have a good time. Bye bye.